I watch soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
لا تنسون تتابعونا على Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I like to watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
Me gusta mirar fútbol en Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I love watching soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Back to Vitriol. He'll take a shot and he'll bear it! And then he'll fire it from Billows and it'll go in! Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one and that's gonna go in! Oh, and both goals so far. He'll fire one and that's a wonderful save, Killerney. That's missed. Oh, it's Stone! And he'll fire one now from distance and that is in! What a strike by Ben Maher! Well, welcome here to Monday night. It's the 19th of December. Merry Christmas, happy holidays. My name's Jonathan Turner. It's Msn Weekly. We're live from our studios here in Shelby Township, Michigan, joined by none other than Steve Besk and Dan Stickrat. And guys, it's our last episode here of the year.
Yeah, can't believe that the year is almost up. What a way to round out the year, though, with the World Cup final yesterday and league play jumping back in, and so much to discuss and so much coming on the network, John.
There's a lot to get to here tonight. We'll put our rundown here in a second. Dan, you weren't here last week. What happened?
It's just a little bit under the weather.
Dan, did you fall down the stairs?
I had a little incident at home. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, Steve and I had a chance to talk about, the Rio, the Gio Reyna situation that happened last week. We talked about the World Cup semifinals. A lot to talk about here tonight. We have a special guest here, one of our first guests here on the network in studio. We'll bring Noah Yee on here in a little bit. He was the winner of our Goal of the Year here for the first ever edition of Goal of the Year. So we'll have him on here in a few moments. But guys, looking at what happened here yesterday, Argentina wins in PKs. Was it the best game in the history of the World Cup? We'll talk about that tonight. Is Messi the GOAT? Is he the greatest of all time?
I don't think there's a debate anymore.
We'll talk about Inside the Game, our first ever edition of Inside the Game. We'll talk about what that's all about here coming up as well. Save of the Year is currently underway right now. We'll talk about the mishap I had here in editing later last night. And then happy holidays. We'll kick out of here. But let's first start talking here about Argentina and how they won here yesterday in PKs. I would say arguably the best game I've ever watched at a World Cup. Obviously, I wasn't at the World Cup, but on my TV screen, my nice 65-inch screen TV at home. But, Steve, I know you were in Chicago watching the game. Dan, where were you at?
At home. And I would say the word epic falls into play here. Absolutely epic. I mean, I could watch that game over and over again. There was just so many things going on.
Yeah, I think it was there's been games where there's been potentially maybe a better individual goal or an incident, a red card, or this, that, and the other that maybe makes a game memorable. But from start to finish, with the way the game went, Argentina gets the lead, sets up the comeback for France, the go-ahead in overtime, the equalizer, sending it to kicks. Some yellow cards in there, but nothing that anyone ever really questioned as anything being red. There was never a questionable send-off opportunity. I think the referee got all three penalty decisions spot on without VAR help, which kind of unbelievable, to be honest. Not that the first two I thought were spot-on fouls, but the handball to see that live and to make that decision in the box. There's really nothing in the game that you wouldn't want in a match, and obviously of that magnitude and what was on the line. And then we talk about all the goals, and you talk about probably arguably the best save ever. I mean, there may be more acrobatic saves, but there's nothing more on the line with 120, 19, 20th minute or 123rd minute when Emi Martinez makes that kick save on a breakaway. And, for all those that said, oh, it's rigged and Argentina was set to win, if he buries that right there, France is taking home the title and coming home back-to-back champs, and we're having a far different discussion today. To be honest, when it happened live, I thought he was going to try to chip the goalkeeper. I thought he was going to maybe go over the top. I don't blame him for keeping it low. You want to keep it on frame, but an epic save. So anything you could have wanted in any football game, let alone a World Cup final. And I'll say it right now, it was the best game I've ever seen, and probably the best game I will ever see in my lifetime.
Dan?
I mentioned the word epic, but the term world class comes to mind. You know, you've heard that in, flashbacks of various games. People say world class. That game was incredible. Absolutely incredible. I mean, not just the goals, but that kick save with like 30 seconds left. That ball is 3 or 4 inches one way or the other. That's in the net. You have France wins. There was a few other saves late in regulation and in overtime that,
Lloris had a big one on Messi from outside the box as well, where, so you're right. Epic, it really was, and world class. It was world class from all angles. Defensively, at times there was some great tackles. There was the finishing, obviously. I mean, the Mbappe strike 90 seconds after the penalty to tie the game. Not to mention the combination and build-up play. He plays a little 1-2. I forget who he played in it with. Flicks it over the top, and I mean, he makes an absolute wonder strike on a volley. He had the time, could have brought it down. Decides, no, I'm going to take this one-time hit and gets it on frame, beats Martinez. I mean, just everything, the ride of emotion, the roller coaster emotion in the game. I mean, you could even hear it throughout just Detroit sports radio today. People calling into the radios of, I'm not a soccer fan, but I watched this game and the emotions, and oh my gosh, that was one of the most entertaining sporting events I've ever watched. And I think, Dan and I were talking a little bit before the show. I think your average sports viewer could watch that game and really kind of start to understand what most of us, see on a day-to-day basis and how we are involved in the game and the passion we carry for it. You could kind of feel that in that game yesterday.
Well, and the funny thing is there were some comments about it. This was the first game you've ever watched. Maybe you should never watch soccer again if this is your first ever, right?
It's going to be a letdown.
And to be fair, the World Cup as a whole, I mean, especially the quarterfinals, round of 16, there wasn't a game that I just didn't thoroughly enjoy in the elimination rounds. They were all really good games. I mean, 5 games were decided by PKs during this World Cup. I mean, looking at the stats from yesterday, 20 shots for Argentina to the 10 for France. Shots on target, 10. So they were shooting 50% yesterday on target, which phenomenal. 54% possession to Argentina, 46% to France. Just the pass accuracy, the fouls. There's 26 fouls. There were 5 yellow cards to Argentina, 3 to France. A well-managed, I would say, probably one of the best managed finals that we will ever see from an officiating standpoint. We've seen some, I think a lot of times referees and players themselves, this game can be too much. There's a lot on the line, right? You're playing for your country. If you are an official, there's a lot more. This is the pinnacle of your career at that level. And I think a lot of times the psychological aspect of that game can wear on a player as well as an official. And we've seen it in previous World Cups. We've seen it where referees, Howard Webb, right? He double yellow carded a player, didn't give him a red card, right? Gave him 3 yellow cards during the course of that game. So, these moments can happen, and actually a very well-managed game by the Polish referee.
Yeah, and I think his experience as a former player kind of shined through in some of those moments when I thought he addressed everything. Again, there really wasn't anything that I thought he should have booked that didn't. There was nothing that I thought came across as a send-off offense. I thought there was, there were some tactical fouls. Argentina had to make one late in overtime where they, tackled a guy pretty much outside his own penalty area to prevent a counterattack. And, there was just, he really understood the moment, very good with handling it, in the finals especially, hate to say it, but with the way Argentina plays, sometimes when they get a lead, they get very good at delaying the remaining part of the game, and really seeing that game out. And I thought the referee crew did a good job keeping the ball moving, keeping the game flowing. There wasn't much there to, he didn't take away from the game, and he allowed the players to finish the game. And Argentina, rightfully so, also, battled through, and they didn't, try to delay us too much. I thought he handled everything, spot on. And, really couldn't have scripted it to much better than the way it ended.
Which leads me into my next question, and part of our rundown here today is Messi the GOAT. And Pele, obviously, right? I mean, but now look at what Mbappe did yesterday. A hat trick in the World Cup final. I mean,
Only second one ever, I believe.
right? I mean, we saw Carly Lloyd do it for the U.S. here a couple, number of years ago, right? Is he the GOAT? I mean, and is Mbappe making his way there? Because I mean, to be fair, he has got a lot of World Cups ahead of him.
Well,
Yeah,
I think
he's a young guy. I mean, he's not even 30 yet, correct?
he's
No.
23.
20,
Yeah, hey, he's got at least two more.
I was
mean,
talking to
so-
a friend today, and I think Mbappe is going to break a lot of World Cup records. I mean, he's played in 2 World Cups before age 24. He's reached 2 finals, which means he's played the maximum amount of games. So, Messi breaks the record yesterday of most World Cup finals appearances, with 26, I believe, appearance in games, which is a lot. But, Mbappe's already got, 14 in 2 World Cups. So he's going to smash a lot of records. He's going to score a lot of goals. He is very talented. To do what Messi's done over a career, he's gonna have to withstand the any injury scares. He's gonna have to continue to play with teams that surround him with talent, which I don't think there will be a problem with that. But if you look at some of the seasons that Messi had at Barcelona and the talent he had around him and the ability, I mean, the 2012 season where he scored 91 goals. Talk to me when Mbappe scores 91 goals in a calendar year, over that season. I think Mbappe is definitely trending in that direction. He's that next guy. If Ronaldo and Messi are on that over that hill of their the peak of their careers. Yes, Mbappe is coming up. Yes, it's not to take away from guys like Neymar or Erling Haaland, who are also very good players, but Neymar hasn't done it from an individual standpoint. And to me, you can compare eras. And I think it's unfair to the players in all the eras because Messi can only play against who he played against, and same with Pele and Maradona. Like they couldn't control who they played against. But I think if you watch on a comparison of what they can physically do with the ball and on the field, to me it's hands down Messi. I mean the records he broke, the goals, the contributions at a World Cup, and this. I mean I think a lot of people, if you're a fan of the game, respected Messi as the GOAT, no matter if he won this title or not. But I think this just more cemented his place to say you can't have that argument now of he never won a World Cup, and I think that's put to rest. And he completed the pinnacle of the achievements in the game.
I mean, he scored 2 goals yesterday. Arguably could have had a third. He's obviously scored that first PK. Something that we talked about last week on the show is you have your best player take that first PK, and that was answered yesterday because both teams' best player got up there and buried him. And Mbappe, that was his 3rd PK of the day. Right, so I mean, arguably the most difficult PK he's probably ever had to make in his career because he went the same way all 3 times.
Which I found a bit interesting that he chose to continue to shoot. And listen, if you have confidence in your shot, I always grew up with the coaches saying you pick your spot, you practice your spot, and you bury your spot. And if you're good enough and bury in that spot, no keeper's going to save it no matter what. But you saw that yesterday.
Did you see the pace on those shots though? I mean, it's insane.
Yeah, they were hit with.
You ever watch like professional tennis? They're serving the ball 120, 130 miles an hour. Same thing with these penalty kicks. The pace was incredible, and the goalies still barely got fingers on them or no body at all. They guessed right, but just the ball's in the back of the net in a blink of an eye.
I mean, this might sound controversial, but I just expect goalkeepers to get there. I mean,
John, please enlighten us in your goalkeeping career. How many penalties did you ever save?
Oh boy, here we go.
Penalties were my thing, so I will tell you that I did very, very well in PKs. So there were a lot of penalty shootouts where I had saved 3 in out of 5. Our team would win. There were a lot that I didn't save any at all. And so, but this isn't about me. This is not about me. This is about the World Cup. But either way, we talked about obviously Argentina winning yesterday. We talked about Messi being the GOAT. We asked you, the audience, we asked you, the viewer, what are your thoughts? There's a poll going on right now on our YouTube channel. So, click that yes or no. Let us know what your thoughts are. If Messi is in fact the GOAT, the greatest of all time. I've talked about how that word GOAT's been thrown around a lot lately. I feel like we use this word GOAT. It's the to be fair, I look at a player like Tom Brady. I believe Tom Brady is the GOAT. Messi is a GOAT. But where's Mbappe? Is he a GOAT yet? You know what I mean? Like, because we've talked about this not only in broadcast, right? What does the word GOAT mean? Because someone was saying, what's the difference between a legend, a GOAT, Hall of Famer, right? There's a lot of different ways we can talk about players. But if you're a Hall of Famer, does that make you a GOAT? Make you a legend?
I mean, Michael Jordan. He's one of the first athletes you heard globally that was considered the greatest of all time in his sport. Is Messi in that category for soccer? Absolutely.
Pele's definitely in that
Pele's
conversation.
in that conversation.
Is Neymar a GOAT?
I don't think so.
Well, to people in Brazil, he probably is.
He's one of the better, but what has he won for Brazil?
Nothing, because they seem to always bow out right now. It seems like in the quarterfinals.
Right. So to me, I hate the conversation of greatest of all time when it comes to basketball, whether it's Jordan, LeBron, whether it comes to soccer and it's Pele, Maradona, Messi, or Ronaldo, whether it's whatever the sport is. It's unfair because you can't compare the eras. You can't compare players that never played against one another. You can only look at statistics and look at it relative to who they're playing. I think there's conversations to say there are legends in the game, and I think there's in each sport a select few that you can have that GOAT conversation about and say who the greatest. I think in the game of football, it's Pele, Maradona, and Messi. And yes, you can say that Ronaldo is a great player. Is he one of the greatest of all time? Yeah, I can respect that argument. He didn't win a World Cup, but he also won a Euros. And not that Messi can't win a Euro, right? Because they're not in UEFA. But he's done a lot. He's won games at a national level. He's scored an unreal amount of goals. He's lifted his team to Champions Leagues and La Liga titles and Serie A titles and Premier League titles. He did it. He went to multiple leagues and won club championships. In England, he did it in Italy. He did it in Spain. Messi's done it in Spain, and he did win the league, with France or PSG in France. Not that, many will respect the Farmers League that is Ligue 1, but, a title is still a title. But the same to say when, Ronaldo won at Juventus, Inter and AC and Napoli weren't necessarily putting up the biggest fight. So I think it's all relative. I think that it creates great conversation. I think this is what, why we love sports. Dan and I were talking about it before the show about just how much we enjoy sports. And this is, that those water cooler moments that we get to have these conversations about the GOAT. And I think there's good arguments for both sides. But as a fan of the game, and I think, for me, the eye test, I don't think it's even close. I think Messi takes it away. He's the greatest of all time, the greatest I've ever seen.
How many GOATs are there for a sport? I mean, is there just one?
That goes back to the era they're playing it, because some people like
was the greatest one.
And we're going to ask this question of Noah, by the way. I'm going to put Noah on the spot. I want to know his opinion. He's a young guy. He's a high school
chomping at the bit. I wish I could answer.
He's a high school senior, right? A high school senior. So we're going to ask him. I'm 23 years removed from high school, so I'd love to know what the mindset is. But we have this during our broadcast, during our games, where players will be like, our fans or the viewers say, "Oh, the player on the field, the high school player, is the greatest of all time." We've had that conversation quite a bit, and I'm curious because I feel like the GOAT that to me is the greatest honor per se, outside of all the awards and accolades you might get for your sport.
Well, my question to you: do you think there can be multiple GOATs?
If you're going to say the greatest of all time, I think it's singular.
Right. So then I don't think you can have. I don't think you can have. I mean, I think there's conversation, or there's greatest of all times of eras, but I think it's a very singular type thing. So I think it's reserved for the very best. That's why I think you can say, hey, there's a Hall of Fame player, there's legends of the game, and I think that's where media, we get caught into this all the time is creating lists or creating a ranking or creating, hey, this has to be the best. Why can't we just appreciate all of it? Why do we have to have it? And it's fun to have these arguments. It's fun to debate back and forth, but at the same time, I think it's great that we're lucky. I mean, we're lucky enough to have witnessed, like in my lifetime, the careers of a guy like R9 from Brazil, who I got to very little Maradona when I was real young, and then to me, like the likes of like Ronaldinho and David Beckham, and then like the Wayne Rooneys and CR7s and Messis of the world, and now the Erling Haalands and Mbappes, and I think they can all be legends of the game. But I think for some of these young guys, I think media gets too wrapped up in quickly anointing some of these. And I think it was easy for Ronaldo and Messi because they consistently proved it year in, year out.
Everyone looked forward to that Real Madrid.
They're 1A, 1B, and you could have that flip of coin every day, 1A, 1B. Every year they'd go back and forth. We're going to have to wait and see what Erling Haaland does, what Mbappe does. I mean, Mbappe has now made his mark in 2 World Cups, so he is slowly making that case to say,
I don't know about slowly.
He's fast rising up the charts. I mean,
slowly
guy's amazing.
Probably the wrong
word.
verb.
But I mean, how many people saw Pele. I mean, I saw him as a little kid in the late 70s, early 80s, but, is the game different now?
Far removed from his prime.
I'm about to bring in a movie. I think a movie
Victor.
I remember
Victory?
Kicking and Screaming with Will Ferrell. Have you seen that movie? The Pele Ball.
I've not seen it.
Oh, you need to watch it. No, have you seen Kicking and Screaming? Gee, oh my goodness gracious!
You're on an island right now, John.
Oh my God, Kicking.
Curious.
It's called Kicking
Oh, I
and
know it is.
Screaming. It's with Will Ferrell. It's about him being a soccer coach for a young Pee-wee team, and his father they fight over this Pele ball on the mantle. So I just bringing
Sounds
that
thrilling.
in. It is a great movie.
Dan, you want to Netflix and chill later?
You know
Hey,
what?
I've gotten into watching Ted Lasso on TV.
What a great.
The show's great.
Well, we're going to step aside here for a moment. When we come back, Noah Yee will be joining us here. Steve Best will take a step out. But this, right now, what we're going to be covering, or what you can see on the commercial side, is our first look here, promo at Inside the Game, Gold Star FC. We had a chance to sit down with Alex Lubianski here this past week, talk about Gold Star FC, what they're doing in Livonia, and so much more. So you'll take a look at that here on the break. We'll be right back here. You're watching MSN Weekly right now here on this Monday evening. This is where it's all going to be, huh? This is it.
This is exactly what we envisioned when we put together a trial at this date and time. So it's exciting.
To start talking about here, Gold Star FC, what does it mean to you to have this team here in Livonia, Michigan?
Yeah, it's very, very exciting to be part of the community. What a fantastic pathway to really guide our decision of where we want to build a stadium, where we want to build a fan base, the kind of experience we want to create a game day. And Families First fits perfectly into our model. So we certainly support the other local clubs, but we're different, we're unique. It's cold, it is miserable, and those guys are competing. And if you want to go to the leagues that have the most media exposure in the world, the best players in the world, all of those things, you cannot be developed in this 72-degree climate outdoors year-round and expect to play only that way. So if you look at our team in Andorra, we just posted some photos on social media. They're training in the snow right now. They're doing it right now in Andorra.
A local amateur team that's been here for a while, and they have a strong fan base. One of the stronger fan bases that we've come across in this area for amateur soccer, and they were not happy about a team coming to Livonia. What do you have to say to them? Well, welcome back here into MSN Studios. Now sitting alongside not only Dan Stickrap, but also Noah Yee. Noah Yee, man, welcome here to MSN Weekly. We appreciate you joining us here today.
Thank you for having me.
If you want to step a little close to that microphone for me, that way we can all hear you. Noah, your first time here, but you won Goal of the Year here, our inaugural first time ever doing this. To be fair, I was quite surprised at the amount of voting and participation that we saw during the course of the overall Goal of the Year event. Noah, you finished against your teammate, Nick Werrell. He had 21,810 votes. You had 26,938.
Yeah, it was crazy, man. Like, the support for our team, for the Troy guys, it was great all around. It was cool having us go this far and get people supporting soccer and stuff.
No, it was fun. I mean, we can take a look here. I don't have the screenshot of it on our screen, but we can talk a little bit about kind of your pathway towards, towards the victory. I want to make sure and see what bracket you were actually in. Take a look here. I apologize. Have it up on my screen. Here you are. You were in the West bracket. So you started off your first game or your first matchup was against Shapinski from Sterling Heights Stevenson. He actually had a really good goal. But your goal, the goal that you had against Royal Oak, was actually a phenomenal goal. It was the fifth goal of that match. Right before that, we saw Carter Kuzmano. He scored a goal off.
Clay
Kuzmano. Thank you. Clay Kuzmano scored a diving header off a ball from Nick Werrell. and then you come in and you nail one. I mean, pretty close to upper 90.
Yeah, it was a great goal. Just came right off my foot. Great. It was one of my best goals ever, actually.
Well, there you go. How many goals did you have in your career at Troy High?
Career, I believe around 10. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get through. You beat Shapinski. 7,000 votes, by the way, to his 43 was that first matchup. In your second matchup, another Sterling Heights Stevenson Titan. You won that one, 4,927 votes to 1,498. So that was a phenomenal. Then you make your way into the third round where you faced off against Detroit Catholic Central Kellen Larson. On that one, you finished with 9,260 votes to 1,717.
Yeah.
And then we make our way then now to the semifinals, where in the semifinals you beat Kai Sotomayor from Royal Oak, same team that you beat up in the first round of districts, 9,907 to 4,867. So, half. And then in the finals, Nick Worrell. Again, 26,938 votes, over 250,000 votes cast during that entire goal of the year process. We had 80,000 visitors to our website. It was a phenomenal thing. So, you're sitting here in this chair. I asked this question about the greatest of all time. Love to know, first off, what your thoughts of the World Cup were yesterday.
Wow, it was a great game. Like, going into that, expecting, something crazy like that to happen with both those teams, great teams. I just didn't expect something like that. It was a great game to watch. It
was a great game to say. We have to put that as a GOAT, the greatest of all time game, right, is what we might have to do for that one. But Noah, GOAT, what does GOAT mean to you as a young man?
I do believe it's one of the greatest players of all time, but I do believe there's one single GOAT, but it could change over the course of time, of course. But everyone has their own opinion. It's going to be different. But
I think generationally, I think it can be. I think again, Michael Jordan of my day, right? I'm not a big LeBron James fan, so I would say Michael Jordan is my GOAT for basketball. But I also hate basketball, so that's probably not a really good fair thing to say. But maybe Joe Montana, from the San Francisco 49ers is the greatest of all time. Who's the greatest NFL football player of all time? We can say Tom Brady right now, but who are we comparing him to? Is it a Joe Montana? Is it a John Elway?
Montana personally was one of my favorite quarterbacks, but it's so different to choose between positions. It's kind of like in baseball, you can say who's the greatest hitter of all time, but you can't compare it to who's the greatest pitcher. Baseball roots go back to the 1800s. It's hard to compare eras and different positions.
I would say the greatest person to ever play the game as far as being healthy, or not healthy, but, attendance-wise, Cal Ripken Jr. Right? He didn't miss a game for how many games? It was like 3,000, some crazy number.
It was insane, yeah.
It was an insane amount of games he had not missed in a row. So, anyways, I agree. Positionally, you're right. So, LeBron James, his position, but is there, rebounding defensively? Who's the best defensive player in the NBA history? Ben Wallace? Dennis Rodman. You heard it right there from behind the scenes there. That was Steve Besk.
Akeem Olajuwon, was a great shot blocker, but someone like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was just a great center, but it's hard to compare him to a guard like Michael Jordan. They're just different positions.
It's no question. No, we had a chance to follow Troy High quite a bit this season. Right, we saw you in tryouts. We saw you doing the Troy Athens game against Berkeley. We saw you against Berkeley twice. The first time that was unlucky bounce, for Berkeley, but hey, it was a hard fought match. Same thing happened. You guys came out winning that one in PKs. George Hildebrandt I stood tall during that game. Then you went on to play against Rochester Adams in the regional semifinal. And something we talked about, Dan and I, along with Steve, is that that game realistically was the state final, because the team that came out of that region, we believed would make their way to the state final and eventually possibly win it, right? And we saw that in Rochester Adams. But hard-fought game. You're down 2-0 in that game, right? You guys come back. I mean, John Palomino talking about having a game of games to come back. I mean, we knew that during the season he was struggling to find the back. And then, I think you could have legitimately taped the ball to him during the regular season, wrapped it around him, and tried throwing him in the net, and he wouldn't have gone in. But in that game, what did he do? He found 2 goals to bring it back. Ended up having a hat trick, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, and it was funny thing because I was told the Akron coach was there to watch Palomino and Worrell play. I think he put on a pretty good show.
I mean, he did. I mean, and then again, it comes down to penalties, right? And it's one of those things where, penalties can really, it's 50-50, right? It doesn't matter what day of the week. I mean, it was much warmer that day than the Berkeley game where it was colder outside. We were almost sliding down the bleachers that night. But talk about your success at Troy High. I mean, you guys went to the regional semifinals 2 years in a row. Had a lot of seniors this year. But talk about what being a Troy High Colt is and what it means to you as a player.
Okay. Well, the team in general, great team. All of us, basically seniors, we had a great bond. Like, everyone was friends with each other. We knew it was going to be different. Like, all of us going into the season, prior season, we had a different type of game with each other. Like, we knew it was going to be different, and we played really well together, and that's how we showed in our stats and stuff. But it was really cool to go that far. Of course, we didn't get as far as we would like to have done, but we had a great time with it, and everyone played as best as they could for the team.
No, it was a really good year, and you guys lost, 2 games, right? It was, and in the course of 2 years, you lost 3, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of teams that can say that. A phenomenal career. And we appreciate, what you said as far as, the attention that we're giving, to the game of soccer. Our goal here at MSN is to do just that, specifically here in Michigan. I know a lot of the show has been talk about like World Cup and goats and things like that might have nothing to do with Michigan. But it is a game of soccer, so we're going to talk about it. But, the goal of the network is to do, in fact, is to shine this light on the game of soccer. And we're going to continue to do that. And we appreciate you stopping by here tonight and being a part of this. As you're getting ready to leave here, the show here tonight, what would you say to a player coming to Troy High or a high school player right now who's an 8th grader that they could, going into a freshman year of playing high school soccer, what would be your advice to them?
Have a positive mindset. Like, you're going to meet a lot of new people. It's going to be like some of the best times of your lives playing with this team. Like, you got to have a good positive mindset, make these friends, have a good time with it, especially like the amount of times, the memories I've made with these teams, the games we play, like, it's all for each other. Like, it's great. So.
Oh, that's great.
It happens so quick, doesn't it?
Oh, it does, yeah.
You start as a freshman, and next thing you know, you're done.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's like a flash.
Were you lucky enough to play basically injury-free your entire career?
I actually had 2 bad injuries, like, that set me down in my senior year this year. I think I sat out of 3 or 4 games because of a bad sprained ankle. But
okay.
Yeah, I got back into it, but a lot of us suffered injuries, but we just picked each other up.
No question. Yeah. So one thing we always do here on the network, we might forget sometimes, but we try to be consistent as we possibly can when we have people that we're interviewing. What is your go-to? What's your favorite food?
Food?
Yeah.
It's got to be steak. Steak dinner.
Okay, so how do you like your steak cooked? What kind of a steak specifically?
Definitely a medium rare steak. Either ribeye, filet is great.
Filet is good. Okay.
Yeah.
Any accompaniments with that steak?
Just some nice potatoes, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, like a garlic mashed or?
Oh yeah, for sure.
For sure. Okay. Any green beans or like asparagus?
Broccoli.
Broccoli. Okay. All right. And last but not least, your favorite candy?
Definitely Skittles.
Skittles. Okay, right. The original or like the tropical? I mean,
I go with the original usually.
Okay. Well, there it is. You heard it here from Noah. His favorite food is steak. Loves it with broccoli and mashed potatoes and Skittles. There you go. Noah, man, thank you very much for joining us here tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And congratulations once again on winning goal of the year here. We do have a trophy.
Oh, really?
It's not here, but we do have a trophy made up, and we will find a way to get it to Jimmy Statura. And that will be your trophy that you'll have.
Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. So don't go anywhere, guys. We come back here. We're going to get into, inside the game. It's a new series here we started here this past week. It starts coming out on this Sunday, Christmas Day, here at 8 p.m. We also have a big announcement coming up here on Christmas Eve that we'll talk about. That's going to be coming at 1 o'clock Eastern on Christmas Eve. So don't go anywhere. We come back, we'll talk about that and so much more. You're watching MSN Weekly right here on the Michigan Soccer Network. And he'll take a shot, and then a diving save. Oh, then both goals so far. A fire one, and that's a wonderful save. He'll put this one in. He'll just shoot it. Look at that. Wow. Gracioso comes up with a save. Oh, ball goes to Schaefer. He gets his third chance, and right again at Gums.
What a save from Gum.
Billow steps up, and the save by Hildebrandt, and the Troy. And now here comes an opportunity. Davidson comes up with the save, and it's cleared away. This is where it's all going to be, huh? This is it.
This is exactly what we envisioned when we put together a trial at this day and time. So it's exciting.
To start talking about here, Gold Star FC, what does it mean to you to have this team here in Livonia, Michigan?
Yeah, it's very, very exciting to be part of the community. What a fantastic pathway to really guide our decision of where we want to build a stadium, where we want to build a fan base, the kind of experience we want to create a game day. And Families First fits perfectly into our model. So we certainly support the other local clubs, but we're different, we're unique. It's cold, it is miserable, and those guys are competing. And if you want to go to the leagues that have the most media exposure in the world, the best players in the world, all of those things, you cannot be developed in this 72-degree climate outdoors year-round and expect to play only that way. So if you look at our team in Andorra, we just posted some photos on social media. They're training in the snow right now. They're doing it right now in Andorra. A
local amateur team that's been here for a while. And they have a strong fan base. One of the stronger fan bases that we've come across in this area for amateur soccer. And they were not happy about a team coming to Livonia. Yeah. What do you have to say to them? Welcome back here once again into our MSN studios. I'm Jonathan Turner, Dan Stickrat, Steve Besk. We're back. And again, Noah Yee, congratulations to you again on goal of the year. Again, 48,748 votes in total that we had during that final. 26,938 to Noah Yee, 21,810 to Nick Warrell. Again, we talked about this. The whole thing blew my expectations out of the water. I think that we expected on some level, maybe 50,000 votes. We got that out of basically one match. So
yeah, well, I think we'll be doing that again in the girls' season come next summer.
That we will. We currently have Save of the Year going on right now. We'll talk about that here a little bit. We're going to now talk here about Inside the Game. It's a new show, a series here that we are starting here. It'll launch Christmas Day. You ask why Christmas Day? Well, why not? It's not like you can't watch it anytime you want.
You put a gold star on top of your tree, don't you?
Yes, I do. Well, this year it's a hat.
Oh, well.
This year it's a I don't know, like a flannel top hat. My wife decided to go with a flannel, I don't know. It's not like a traditional star.
Doesn't our marketing team have MSN Weekly ornaments hanging on your tree?
No, we do have a Detroit Lions ornament that I got last week at the Lions game. And speaking of the Lions, they are now 6-1 in their last 7 games.
Sniffing the playoffs.
They are. See, here's the thing, though, right? This is the thing, and I'm going to say it because I'm a Lions fan because I can. Right? It's like I'm Polish, I can say Polish jokes. This is true. We're gonna be let down here in 3 weeks.
Well,
I'm putting it out there. The reason I'm saying that is this:
if your expectation is that they will make the playoffs, then I think there potentially could be a letdown. But I think if you look at it from the way they're playing, from starting 1-6 to whether they finish 9-7 or 10-7 or 8, it's. I think the vast improvement of the team and the confidence that the fan base has in Dan Campbell moving forward and Brad Holmes as GM is working in the right direction, because I don't think anybody expected them to make the playoffs this year, no matter what, even if they won 7-8 games. I think it was more or less, are they improved from a 3-13-1 team from last year? And I think that's the case. So let down, sure. If you're thinking that they're really going to make a run and make the playoffs, then there may be a letdown. But I to be honest, I don't think they can let me down at this point, because I think knowing that there's a core and that they can build on that and that they might have the right coach and GM, that's encouraging, because we haven't said that in a long time.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I mean, we haven't said that since 2016.
But it's nice.
I mean,
to see
Jim
him
Caldwell
winning
was
it.
a great coach. The reason why I'm saying this is that what's the difference between him starting 1-6 and now being 7-7 and them starting 6-1 and losing? My point though with that is that I am on board. I think what has happened with this team, what's going on with their record 6-1, I think it's fantastic. I think it's great, and I am excited about watching them here on Christmas Eve, because I remember back in 2016, Christmas Eve, another match they had. I think they're playing the Patriots, or no, maybe it was the Bears on Christmas Eve. They won that game. They got them in the playoffs. Right, and it was fantastic. We're playing meaningful football in December, and that's something that we don't get a chance to do here in Michigan quite a bit. It just doesn't seem to happen.
Well, you're already usually looking at mock drafts by this point.
Yeah,
so
correct.
it's exciting because the standpoint, the Lions haven't been good. The Wings have been down. The Tigers have been down. The Pistons haven't done well in recent years. We don't have an MLS team in Detroit. So realistically, if you are a Detroit sports fan, there has been a lot to cheer about in terms of team sports in recent years. We've gone to the colleges and the high schools for teams to cheer on, because professionally, of the 5 major sports, 4 we haven't been good in, 1 we don't even have a franchise for.
Yeah. And the reason why I say letdown is that I do think that there's like this balloon full of all of this exciting, fan helium, it's all kind of getting there, right? And honestly, I'm sitting there going, you know what? If the Lions do find a way to make it in the playoffs, I actually think that they could do something.
Yeah.
I mean, for the first time in a long time, like watching that game yesterday, okay, the Lions, SOL, and I hate saying SOL, I really do. But you look at that and say, man, they were down, 17-13, with under 2 minutes to go. It's 4th and inches. We've seen the run up the middle, and we're snuffed, right? We've seen that. No, instead they knock off a 55-yard touchdown pass, to take the lead. And then, of course, what do? They allow Zach Wilson to, again, heroic moving around. It seems like the Lions defense always seems to find a way to allow another quarterback, whether they're good or not, to make heroic plays and make 25-yard passes on 4th and 18. And now they're in field goal range. They have a shot to hit a field goal with 3 seconds to go, but that thing goes well wide. That's
usually the kick that gets made for an NFL record.
Yeah, last year they had one against. Remember the Hail Mary from Rodgers in 2015 on that Thursday night game?
Don't even bring that up, man. My wife had gone to bed already, and I'm downstairs, and I'm okay. We won this game. We won this game, and sure enough, the penalty, the face mask that never happened, and then you're screaming at the top. My wife's going, "What's going on?" That was awful. But to be fair, a lot of other things are going right now with the Lions that have nothing to do with how they're playing. Like the calls, too. The calls are going their way. Like that the goal line stand where, they end up scoring a touchdown after the review. But some of these calls, I don't think it overturned a couple of years ago.
I think I think we talk about it in sports all the time, that sometimes you have to make your own luck. And yes, if you look at the history of the Lions, a lot of calls have not gone their way. A lot of things in crucial times and moments have not gone their way. And whether you believe the NFL is out to get the Lions or not, I don't. I just think that, there's always a winner and loser of the game, and sometimes there's teams that just don't win, a.k.a. Tottenham. And so sometimes you just there are just teams that just don't know how to win. And I think it is very much a culture thing. I think in the NFL more than anything, and I've never been inside a football locker room, but the way you watch with Hard Knocks and you see the way that these teams, come together and the adversity they have to face. Like, there was a comment today about, the Lions beat the Jets, but they were they were missing Quinnen Williams, their defensive star, and so. Yeah, but how many games at the beginning of the season were the Lions, missing players?
The Lions led the league in injuries in the first half of the season.
Exactly. No one's making an excuse when you beat the Lions and they're misplaced. So listen, a win's hard to come by in the NFL, so you take them when you can get them. And right now things are going well. But knock on wood, but if a star player gets knocked out next week, we're having a far different conversation. And so this game, the game of football is it hinges so much on sometimes on just every play, because your star player can get knocked out, ACL or hamstring concussion protocol now that so you got to take advantage of when things are rolling good and playing well. And right now they're playing with like a next man up mentality where guys are just stepping up and making plays, and it's good to see, because I think it resonates with the fans, it resonates with the city. It's tough to defend grit, as Dan Campbell put it in Hard Knocks, when you start 1-6. But in that same breath, a team that has grit continues to fight from 1-6 and turn it back to 7-7, and it's not where they want to be. No one wants them to be 7-7. We'd rather them be 13-1 and 12-2.
If we look at their schedule as a whole and the games that they play,
but you can't get there until you get back, and you put yourself in a big hole. And we all know that you can't take that away, you can't erase it. But all you can do from 1-6 is keep that number 6 as 6 and just work on the 1, right?
But
and they've been doing that.
The players seem to like playing for Campbell, and it doesn't matter what sport you're watching. Sometimes
he's a leader.
Sometimes you can have a collection of athletes, but they don't mesh well, because sometimes athletes may not like their coach or manager. We've seen it in every single sport across the board. You hear stories after where a coach resigns or is fired from his job, and they hear about the chemistry is terrible in the locker room. They don't like playing for Coach X or Coach Y. And it can have a huge effect.
I think that's huge. I think it's such an underrated point of hiring coaches is how much of a leader they are within the locker room and how much respect they are. I think the players in this scenario respect Dan Campbell because he was a player, not just because Dan Campbell played for the Lions, and not just because Dan Campbell knows how to light up a press conference, but because Dan Campbell knows what the grind is like to be through the training camp battles. And when he said those things in Hard Knocks and goes, guys, I know today's going to suck. Like, we're going to be out in pads and this is going to suck, but you got to believe me that this is going to pay off in November and December. And now you're starting to see some of the fruits of that labor. And it's not, obviously it's a results game. And if you're not winning games, you don't have a job for very long. So it's hard to sometimes bite into those long-term projects and have to give faith. But right now it seems to be trending in the right direction. And your point, Dan, they're playing hard for this guy. And to be able to see a team that, if the Lions lost to the Bills on Thanksgiving, and I think all of us could say they had a chance to win that game, but they fought tooth and nail to the heart. They didn't get blown out 33-0. They didn't get blown out. They battled. They didn't win the game, fine, but they fought hard, and they're fighting in every single game. So they're not just gonna. If they lose, hey, they're gonna lose because they lost to a team that just made some more plays than them. They're not gonna lose because they rolled over and they just gave up, and that's encouraging as a fan.
But you think about, we just finished watching the World Cup. Do you think if France, Argentina would have choked and not got out of their pool play, do you think those coaches would be around much longer?
I mean, if
because the collection of athletes they have is amazing.
But the difference here, though, too, is I think, and we talk about the different sports, right, and how coaching is different in different sports, and coaching is more important in different sports, right?
Can you imagine Didier Deschamps' halftime speech yesterday? What I would pay to hear that.
I know.
Fly on the wall for that.
But my point with all this is that a team like France, a team like Brazil, a team like Croatia now, a team like the Netherlands, right, England, the expectation when you get to a World Cup is to win it, right? So if you're not winning it, then, of course, your job is on the line. But you look at a team like the United States, their job was just to get there. You think anyone at U.S. Soccer was going to go win the World Cup this year? I mean, let's be honest. Behind the scenes, you think anyone at U.S. Soccer was saying, okay, go win the World Cup?
No.
That wasn't the expectation.
But next July and August,
I mean, of course, all of us sitting here as fans, right, and going, well, we want to see them win it. But, I mean, I've said this before. I'll say it again. I still think we're 10, 20 years away. I still think that because looking at I don't think that our team could even be on that field. They'd be circles. I feel like it'd be 8-0. I mean, maybe that sounds maybe too harsh, but maybe it's 4. I don't see how we're even close in that game yesterday.
But like our women, they won 2 or 3 in a row World Cups?
2,
right?
So yeah, when that takes place, I think it's July and August next year.
Yeah, there's 23.
The expectation for the U.S. is to get back to the final and try to win it again.
Yeah, and I think, and I couldn't agree more. I do think we're still a ways away because we don't have that superstar, and nothing to take away. Christian Pulisic is our best player, and he's surrounded by a collection of really good players, some great players, but they're not. You're not speaking about any U.S. soccer players right now that are, on track to be a legend of the game, right? There's no guy there that can put his team on his back and lead his team the way Mbappe did, the way Messi did, the way Ronaldo has done in the past, the way guys. There's not that player. So yeah, I think the expectation for U.S. soccer, no, but then you look at all the other nations. Brazil loses, Tite out as manager.
Yeah.
Portugal loses. I don't know. No, sorry.
And
Spain.
There's some questionable decision making.
Luis Enrique out.
Yeah.
Mexico loses. Manager out. Germany loses. Hans Flick is on the very on a hot seat to be out. The expectation for these other nations is just extremely high, and
he's out. By the way, there's no way he's not. He's out.
I imagine
he lost. He didn't even make it to the elimination round. He's out.
This is back-to-back World Cups that that they've not advanced out of the group stage, and for Germany, a nation that completely reconstructed their whole youth system and their to try to better themselves, they've struggled. So, but I think that's also speaks volumes to how much better the rest of the world has gotten.
But looking at, I want to ask this question: which U.S. player from the current roster that started in the World Cup would have been on the starting roster for either France or Argentina yesterday? Would there be any?
Ooh, that's really actually a tough question.
Let me pull up the starting 11.
Okay, I mean Ream.
No, well, I was looking at the starting 11s from yesterday.
Oh, sorry. I'm thinking
I'm trying to see if there's someone I would replace.
Because this is the.
I think we have guys on the rosters, but I don't know about the starting lineup.
I had this conversation all the time with Jimmy. Speaking of Troy Height, Jimmy Statura, me and him would have many conversations. And if you're watching, Jimmy, we appreciate it. But we did many conversations about just this because then I'd be like, hey, when I'd be at Groves, when I was facing off against Troy Athens or Troy High, John, your team played really well. And I would be like, okay, well, which guy would be on your lineup? He goes, John, to be fair, probably none of them. Maybe they'd be like 12, 13. Maybe there's one guy in there that'd be the 11. Maybe one. Right? And that's how you'll know there's a difference.
Well, I think you take Messi off of Argentina, and I don't think they make the final.
He's a special player
because he can carry that team. I mean, I'm looking at the rosters right now. Would you replace anyone in France's top line of Mbappe, Giroud, or Dembele? No.
I mean, Giroud came out though.
Sure, but
I mean,
he's only starting because Benzema got injured. And easily could have been multiple other players. They lost a couple players to injury before the World Cup. I'm not replacing any of the top three. I'm not replacing Rabiot, Griezmann, or Tchouaméni in the midfield. Nobody with the U.S. And then the back line of Hernandez, Upamecano, Varane, and Koundé. I know it's personal, and listen, I understand he's done really good things with France, but I'm not saying Matt Turner's a better goalkeeper than Hugo Lloris. I'm not trying to put that into the universe by any means. But the weakest player on France is their goalkeeper, Hugo Lloris, and that's been stated by multiple people across many platforms and times. He gives up bad goals. And at the same time, he wasn't tested in this World Cup that much until some of the later games, and he made some big saves. And so credit to him. I mean, he
saving against Messi actually is pretty phenomenal.
He came up big when the moment needed, won a World Cup. So, but he would be the weakest player. And you look at Argentina, Di Maria, Alvarez, and Messi up top. There's no way any of those three are coming out. And for a U.S. player, McAllister in the midfield really shined in this World Cup. And then De Pauli, Fernandez, Molina, Romero, Otamendi, Tagliafico. And then Martinez in goal. I don't really think there's a spot in any of those 22 that you really could say this U.S. player is deserving of a spot. Do I think Tyler Adams played really well in this World Cup? Yeah, probably the best U.S. player. But is he playing over any of those players in this tournament? No.
I mean, if you could pick a starting 11 position-wise from everybody that made the World Cup, that would be an interesting conversation.
Like an all-star team?
Yeah. I think that, don't they pick an all-tournament team?
They do an all-tournament. Yeah, the all-tournament team was released today.
But it's usually guys that made the Final Four, right?
It's not always. I mean, I believe like Bukayo Saka had made it. I believe I mean, there was some guys from England. There was definitely some players that didn't make necessarily the Final Four. But yeah, I think there's a team in the tournament, and I think again there's some good points. But to your point, or back to your original point, there's not a U.S. player that's ready to step in. So I think, yeah, we are far away. And it doesn't mean we haven't made great strides, and it doesn't mean that I still think we could make an unexpected run, but there's no expectation on the men's side yet.
Well, there isn't, and that's why, and the reason why I asked this question, and we're going to talk about the inside the game here in a moment, and the reason why I asked this question is it goes right to the fact that we are not ready. And okay, so you start looking at the backups.
Why do you think what do you think is the biggest reason why we're not ready as a country?
I've had this conversation a lot with Rick Larson, and we've talked about this. Our issue is right now is we are too large. Our country's too large. And because we're too large, there's a lot of space in between, and that prohibits the opportunity for players to play soccer. If you go into England, it's a pond. I mean, there's like a small. It's an island, right? I mean, the United Kingdom, it's an island. I mean, it's small. I mean, you only maybe a couple hours drive, and you're to another place. We're too big, right? We're too big. We're too focused on. I consider U.S. soccer more like a cattle run than anything else. It's numbers in, numbers out. Now the MLS Next and the academies and things like that, they're developmental. They're making strides, but I don't see superstars. I see just a lot of really good players, really good players. And to win a World Cup, can you get by with a lot? You mentioned it. Take Messi out of the equation. Does Argentina win?
No,
because Mbappe yesterday, he literally carried that team. He scored all 3 goals, right? And then of course scored a PK.
But you mentioned those are stars. We don't
They
seem
are
to have
stars.
one right
we
now.
don't. But Christian Pulisic is the closest thing that we have to a star. He is the closest thing that we have to a star, and he's not even a player that would be on a starting lineup in a team that won the World Cup. How about look at the semifinals? Croatia. Look at Morocco. Now Morocco, I think arguably we probably would have a few players in that starting 11.
Yeah, Morocco was kind of this year's
Croatia,
story.
Maybe a couple, maybe a couple
player or
players.
two, but not many.
Not many. Right, that's their
I'm
second consecutive
semifinal. I'm taking their goalkeeper over Matt Turner. I'm taking Modric over anybody. I'm taking Perisic. I'm taking a good portion of the team. Yeah, I think there's some spots in there, and to me, I the first time we're really having this conversation about why the U.S. isn't where everyone would want them to be, and I truly just think that the biggest thing is there's too many. I don't know if distractions is the right word, but there's other opportunities. There's so many things for kids to do here in the U.S. growing up and that's great. It's awesome that there's opportunities, other sports to go on, pursue whatever you'd like. But when you look at other countries, yes, there is professional basketball and professional hockey in Europe, but every kid grows up with a soccer ball at their feet. Every kid in Argentina or Brazil is playing on the streets, taking that ball with them home to school, to bed, and every time they're at the table, the ball's at their feet and they're getting touches. There's a natural way for kids to grow up and learn the game and play in ways that just doesn't happen here. Everything is structured, and there's nothing wrong with that to a point as far as growing and learning the game and those types of things, but there are also things that you just learn from playing. And there's things that you learn from just naturally just playing or having that drive to watch idols and people in your country who you strive to be like. Why is every Brazilian, idolize Pele, CR9 or R9, Ronaldinho, Neymar? They've had these idols to look up to who, and obviously the style of play, but there's that idolization of wanting to be great. And there's something to be said about the likes of a guy like Manchester United's Anthony, who Brazilian, and he talked about, I never played soccer to make money. I played soccer to make it big, to make a contract, to get my family out of the favelas.
Yeah.
Right.
So
these guys are playing for something bigger than just
and that's something that Rick and I talked about is that, the thing that, and this is something that we want to talk about on a more broad level, and maybe even drill it down to
a round table, perhaps.
Yeah, round table, perhaps. Just talking about this exact thing, which is, do you want a player that's running towards something or running from something? And what you just talked about there is players that are running from something, right? Because you're running towards something, it's different. It's a different thing. And that's why, for example, like in Europe, there are in England there are players. They have like these teams have like basically like car services that just drive kids around who don't have access to an automobile or don't have parents that can drive them. So they have access to these cars so they can get to and from. Because honestly, the biggest thing, I don't think it's a money thing. I think that there's a lot of clubs out there that would want a player that is phenomenal. That player lives maybe too far away. They can't get to Grand Rapids on a Saturday because their parents have a job, or there's a lot of factors in there.
I think
too.
money is slowly becoming a much bigger.
Yeah, but clubs have the money to let those players play at no cost. Like there's grants and things like that where money is in that regard.
Are they identifying these players though?
But the players probably not coming because they're as you like. Think of here in Michigan. Look at Pontiac. Pontiac has a very huge Hispanic population. I can guarantee you there is a bunch of players in Pontiac that probably do not play club soccer. They play for their high school, and they don't have the means or the money to get to where
they don't
need
have
to go.
the transportation or the money. I mean,
Right.
I've talked to the Pontiac football coach, and I'm not trying to go down a rabbit trail, but they're going out in August. They're picking kids up and driving them to practice and then driving them back because their mom works, their dad isn't around. They have no other way. You see that in the inner cities a lot. And if you live in a rural area like northern Michigan, you're so far away, and it's not just soccer. It's sports in general. And I kind of wonder if you mentioned the word a couple minutes ago, structured. I kind of wonder. I've said this before. I think soccer is almost to a fault too structured in the U.S. and other sports are as well. It's too structured. Let kids play sports. Just let them roll the balls out and play, because you've heard stories about great basketball players come out of Harlem and New York City that were just as good as NBA players. They never had the means of going to college.
I think it sees in the game the way you see the game is played structurally. Like, we don't have fluid, free-flowing players. We have players who I play in 4-4-2. My job as left back is to get the ball to left mid, who gets it up to left forward. Like, we don't, and I think there's some good understanding that you need to understand strategically the game and things like that. But there's also things that you can't teach. And when you watch that little combination play with Mbappe yesterday when he scored that second goal, do you think it's in a coaching manual that he plays this 1-2 and he flicks it off the outside of his foot? No, that's not a coaching manual.
That's something instinctual that he has,
and that's playing.
Same with that ball that Messi played on their goal.
And so there's things that you can't teach in a game, and I think too much of U.S. soccer is structured. And again, it's not to take away that there shouldn't be structure in a game. I just think we don't have the players that have the freedom to have and plays creatively sometimes, because at a young age, we look at that from a club aspect and say, oh, this kid's being showboat, this kid's doing too much. And we try to curtail that into be a better team player. And yes, we want team players, but if you never give that kid freedom to be creative and be a little flashy on the field, you're never going to develop that superstar to do those things, because you're always reining back in and trying to control it a little too much.
No, I agree with that. And I think that I don't think that football or other options is our problem. I think we have enough athletes. We are considered to be one of the greatest countries in the world. We have some of the best athletes in the world. And whether they all need to choose soccer or not is a whole other thing. We have far more people in this country than England does, right? So we know that. Right? I mean, there are, just in Michigan alone, there's 80,000 kids playing soccer, right? We know that that's a number. That's true, right? So, I mean, soccer is the fastest growing sport here in the United States. It's been that way for a long time.
For decades,
For a long time. The problem here is the player who wants to play and wants to be at that level, they get frustrated at a young age for numbers of reasons. Probably to do with the fact that, they're either playing at a level they shouldn't be playing at, right? Maybe there's too much parent involvement, a bad coach. They lose the ability. They don't want to play anymore. I'm done. They wipe my hands. 14 years old, I'm done. And there's a lot of players like that go at 14, I'm out, for whatever reason. And there's a whole bunch of players who would never see the field the way they should because they don't have the means or the money to get there, right? And that's a problem. And until we can solve those two problems, we're never going to be there, period. And again, you start looking at all these rosters of these teams. Okay, the United States top 16th in the world. I think they were 16th going into the World Cup. That's really generous.
I hate to go off a tangent, but did you see the new rankings that came out today?
No, I'm assuming Argentina is one.
No.
Is it Brazil still?
Brazil's one.
Yeah.
And Argentina's two. And I mean, I guess if you're looking at it and say you play the game 10 times, and if Argentina were to play Brazil, yeah, I think Brazil probably wins more times than not. But they just won the World Cup. It baffles me. I guess I just don't understand why.
Probably they hit just like I did with the voting. They probably edited it wrong.
Well, it's the Coca-Cola FIFA ranking, so I guess maybe Sao Paulo outsells Coca-Cola products.
I want to make sure everybody knows it was not me that did the rankings today. I would have put Argentina first. But it's a great conversation, guys, and I think it's one that needs to be had a lot across the board. The argument that the fact that whoever's calling for Greg Berhalter's head, while I understand you can look at it and dissect it and be a Monday morning quarterback, if you thought that they were going to win this thing or go far, you were. I mean,
well, I don't think coaching was the reason that they didn't advance past the Netherlands.
I don't think so either. Now, granted, there are things that we don't like about Greg Berhalter, and honestly, I agree with you. Paul, all agree on this, that if we are hopes of winning a World Cup do not rest on the shoulders of Greg Berhalter, right? I mean, and do we want a better coach? Yes. Does coaching make a difference? Surely it can. Coaching makes a difference on the training grounds, right? That's where games are won or lost. They're not lost on the pitch during the World Cup because there's only so much you can do. I mean, you've gotten them there, right? So your job is not to perform. Our job as coaches, our job as a coach, is to prepare a player both mentally and physically for the task at hand, right? And if you don't have the talent, you're not going to win. I mean, it really comes down to that. I mean, we can look at teams, and again, are there anomalies in that? Of course there are, But I look at it and say, the United States, looking at how they played, and I have yet to see in my lifetime a Team USA play in a World Cup like they did this time around. The way they moved the ball, the possession, the things that they did in this World Cup were far better than I have seen in past World Cups and games where we have, times where we've gone further. Right? I mean, we won against Portugal on grit and hard work and just wanting it more than they did. Right? That's how we won against teams like that. Right? Here, it wasn't so much about wanting it more. It seems like in a lot of cases we were just playing better soccer than the other team.
Yeah, I think a little bit of youth and experience. First World Cup for most of these guys. The young, second or third youngest team, or if not the youngest team in the tournament. So, yeah, it definitely was a team that had more talent, and I think that speaks to I mean, this is the first time you can say up and down this roster, every single one of these guys are playing at a high level in Europe, and not just playing in Europe. And I'm playing in the Swedish second league or the top Danish league or the top Belgian league. No, these guys are. Multiple players playing in the EPL, multiple players playing in Bundesliga and La Liga. So having that talent, escalates and helps, us. But now that we are able to play a much, higher brand and style of play because we have the players that can do that.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have the star. It goes back to what we were talking about 10, 15 minutes ago. Yeah, our stats were better against the Netherlands, but Netherlands could finish. We couldn't. I mean, you look at France and Argentina and some of the other teams, they have stars that can finish. And it really is a game, when it comes down to it, at the world-class level, you got to have the stars that can finish.
Yeah, the stars have to show up.
You got to have the GOAT. You got to have a player of the legend, the legendary type player that's going to we saw two players like that yesterday.
I'm not disagreeing with you on that, but I do think that a team playing at a high level collectively can beat a player, a superstar, right?
Yeah.
And we've seen that time and time again. We've seen that in teams.
I mean, Morocco
Morocco shouldn't have gotten there. I mean, let's be honest. Morocco had no business being in the World Cup based on their roster, but not World Cup, the semifinal. But they got there based on they all collectively played the game the way they were supposed to in order to get to where they went, and that's fantastic. And again, they weren't expected to get there. Who would have thought that Morocco going in this World Cup was going to be in the semifinals?
Nobody
picked.
Yeah. So I mean, can it happen? Of course, it can happen. So I do think that when you're a collective unit, who again, and there's a lot of teams that are really, really good collectively. And you can ask, in the high school game we've covered, right? There are teams that had no business going somewhere, but they got there because they all played well together. And there's something to be said about that. Like Rochester Adams. I mean, no one picked them to win a state final this year. They did. And they did it because they found a way to play well together. They all on the same system and found a way to make it work. Inside the Game here, coming up here this Sunday, it's our new series. We didn't talk about it at all during that entire moment. It's like I introed it, didn't do a thing about it. But let's talk about that for a moment. We have a chance here I had a chance here to sit down with Alex Lubianski from Gold Star FC. He's a CEO and manager this past week. The conversation is a very interesting one. We promoted it here earlier during the evening and on during the show. We had a chance a couple weeks ago to go watch, be a part of the Pints with the Manager out in Livonia. We've talked about this quite a bit, Steve, over the last couple of weeks. I use the word naive, not in a negative, but some of during the course of our conversation with Pints with Manager, all these things, it's like, is this something that can be sustainable? The idea that you're going to bring players in and then you're going to ship them off to Europe, I think there's going to be a lot of people out there that are going to question that, if it's possible. Is this something that you can keep and sustain? Because, I'm not saying you can't ship players off to Europe, but to bring a new team into Livonia, and all these things that they want to do, a 5,000 seat stadium, which is going to be spectacular, by the way, just based on all of our conversations. I like Alex. I think he's got a lot. There's a lot of tangibles I like about him. His personality. I think he's excited. He's anxious to get started. I mean, he did at tryouts. I mean, they had tryouts on Saturday morning at 7:00 in the morning in Lakeland, which is nowhere near Livonia, by the way. It's 46 minutes from my home. It was snowing outside. It was 30 degrees. It was really terrible. The players were playing on snow packed in. I slipping around. But I mean, here I think they invited 4 back for Sunday. So out of the 53 or so that were there on Sunday, they invited 4 back. I'm not sure what happened on Sunday, but they did it all again on Sunday morning. So I'm not sure the right word is naive or not, but just overall, he's coming in and he to be fair, he's like, John, I don't care. I care about the community and things like that, but hey, we're going to do it because this is the right thing for Gold Star. This is what we're going to do. Good for him.
Well, I think it's kind of back to our conversation there about growing the game. And I think that there's going to have to be people within this country that take chances and try to change the narrative. I've always said, for years, I'm shocked that with all the money and competitive sport that we have here, we don't have more IMGs, like they have down in Florida where it's school for sports. Like, let's not kid ourselves, right? In that there aren't a soccer academy here where it's full on soccer 24/7. You're getting your schooling, but that's, the case. And that's not by any means what they're doing, but in essence, their idea and their mission to move players is bold. It's definitely out of the norm in the structure of U.S. soccer, and so I think that is why it's probably a little bit hard for some people to wrap their mind around and grasp and truly, appreciate or really see the vision. And yeah, it's not gonna be typical. It's not gonna be your cookie cutter club that shows up, in the same way that DCFC isn't a cookie cutter club in the way they made their mark. Gold Star is going to try to make their mark in their way and their vision and the way they, their association with their club team from Andorra. Is it clear of a path and an understanding for the average fan? No, it's not. I think there's some explanation and some people that really have to kind of dig deep, and I know that you kind of get into that with Alex, and people can check that out when that comes out. But I think there is, at the same time, as much as it may seem a little bit crazy and convoluted to get there, there is a pathway, and there's going to be opportunities. And listen, this isn't for every player out there. This is for the very few and far between. But that's what they're looking for. Alex has said that many a times. They're looking for that 1 or 2 kids that will do anything to make it pro.
Yeah.
And that's what their goal, and that's the platform they want to provide. is an opportunity for them to play through Gold Star, and potentially if that individual is good enough, there's gonna be an opportunity that maybe they can go move to a pro team in UEFA, and potentially that team with the success that they can have in the Andorran League make it to those Champions League qualifying matches, the matches before group play, and you never know. You have the right team, like we talked about, and they could win that playoff and advance to the group stage. And now you're in the group stage and you're playing, twice against Real Madrid, Chelsea, and Zenit St. Petersburg, and now you're an exposure. Is it going to happen immediately? I don't think so. And I think they're very realistic about that. They know that you have to build that base, but is there a vision? Is there a pathway for that to happen? Yes. Will it happen? We'll see. And I think, if anything that I've taken away from all the conversations we've had with them, is that they're motivated to make their mark and be different. And I think as much as the average fan may want to fight it, I think this is the type of thing to break the mold and break that structure to try, because I think if you get a kid into that program at 14, 15 who stops playing club or just joins and plays that type of level, that's potentially where you can, maybe, birth a superstar in those types of environments.
Yeah, it sounds like they have a vision. It may not be traditional, but they have a vision, because there's a lot of these teams that come and go across the state, amateur teams, pro teams, whatever. They come in, they last a couple years, and then they're gone. Maybe this different approach, different type of vision might work long term. I guess we can just sit back and see.
Well, yeah. I mean, we're clearly, and when I use that word naive, I don't mean it in a way that is, again, as a negative. I use it in a way like just looking at the landscape of soccer. We talk about during the course of the interview about how fragmented soccer is across this country. I mean, there's like 17 different leagues. There's, everyone has a different interpretation of what the tier system is. Should there be promotion versus relegation? There's a lot of things and a lot of conversations that are happening around this country in regards to soccer. And, you look at the Detroit City FC, and we've talked about this. The Detroit City FC, you cannot replicate that. That cannot be repeated. It's such a unique thing that the way that was cultivated and created, you're going to have a hard time replicating that. I don't think there's a recipe for that. You know what I mean? Okay, Livonia. Livonia is an area where, between the clubs that are out there, you've got the Jaguars, you've got, the Hawks, Wolves, Vardar's out there as well. You've got Michigan Rush or Burn. There's like a number of clubs out on that side of town. So there's a lot of people who are involved in soccer in that area, and there's not a soccer team there that you can really get your hands around, right? Or this is my team, right? The only other NISA team in Michigan right now is Michigan Stars, and they're located, 3 miles away from us to the north.
Yeah, towards Rome.
And they're still trying to build this stadium that's been in the works for 5 years. They're no closer to building that stadium than they were, 3 years ago. Here in Livonia, I mean, they're breaking ground right now, basically. And, their goal is to have that thing up and running, a full stadium here between now and June. So it's a really, really cool thing. And I was excited to have that sit down with him. The full interview will be available Sunday, Christmas Day, 8 p.m. right here on the Michigan Soccer Network. We're almost done editing it. We're almost done. We're almost done editing it. We're in the final stages of editing it. It's really cool, actually. I think we've been able to do. I think people will be really impressed with the level of care that we put into making this production. So really excited about that. Let's hop in here to save of the year. That's currently underway right now. Snafu. I made my second one of this season of awards and things. The first one, as we all know, happened during the goal of the year. We're not going to talk about that. But the save of the year, I think this is worse. To be fair, I think it's worse. I selected the same goalkeeper twice and called them different names. And neither of which were correct. So I have to restart that voting process tomorrow with the correct people. So I do apologize to all of those involved. I will not be resigning. I want to make that clear.
Well, you're burning the midnight oil trying to get this thing off ground and
that's not
tired
really an
eye-
excuse.
tired
I actually
eyes.
did the video. The video was done yesterday with like at like noon. But I was watching the Lions and the World Cup. So that could be the reason as to why I made this snafu. But either way, I do apologize. We'll get it corrected. It'll be fixed here probably tomorrow as we roll things out. But man, Christmas is right around the corner. It's the 19th. Put things in perspective. My great grandmother, my grandmother, died on this day, 36 years ago. 36 years ago on the 19th of December.
What a way to end the show.
No, I want to bring
Debbie
that.
Downer over here.
Wait, I'll do the SNL.
Hey, by the way, my great-great-grandmother passed away 40 years ago on today's date. So.
It was actually 36 years ago, on 4 days after my 5th birthday. Thank you very much. But I don't know
In
why.
more positive news.
Well, she wasn't hit by a reindeer or anything.
That's not the song Grandma got ran over by a reindeer. It's written after, but I thought that came out in like 1984, so maybe that's more than 36
Who knew
years
that song
ago.
was about John's grandmother all those years? I've
Ran
been
over
singing
by a
along.
We said
reindeer.
36 years. 1984 would be a 38, so I guess
Close
not.
enough.
Yeah.
To each their own.
John's math may be off. We don't know. Sometimes he's been struggling with numbers recently.
I've been struggling with a lot of things, getting people's names wrong. I say their names wrong. I just been bad. But yes, the holidays are right around the corner. Christmas Eve on Saturday, Christmas Day on Sunday. Big plans for you guys?
No, not really. It's been quite the last month and year. So I'm just kind of excited to jump into 2023. A lot of things coming down the pipeline. So yeah.
Just time Christmas Eve and Christmas Day with some extended family.
Nice.
I've had a rough year. No more falling down the stairs. No more car accidents.
You might have got hit by a reindeer.
Yeah, no more rushing myself to the hospital with the stomach issue. I mean, I've had a rough year, and I'm ready to move on. This year can't be over soon enough. So I am taking a vacation the last week of the year. I will not be in the confines of the Great Lakes State.
Good for you. Good for you. Much needed, I'm sure.
Well,
John, have you got all the shopping done for your family?
No. I've to this point, I've gotten of my
5
family,
days,
20% of my family is done. So
it is the 19th. Today is Monday.
it is. But the thing is, our kids, we don't. It's crazy because you don't have kids, neither do you, Dan. But I'm sure people who are watching this who do have kids could attest to this. As the kids get older, when the kids are younger, the Christmas is really exciting. Like, I mean, in Christmas Eve, you're wrapping the presents and you're building stuff, right? I'm building playhouses and
you wait
toys.
till the last minute to wrap, don't you?
My wife wraps. I don't wrap.
Okay.
I don't wrap anything. I mean, I'm not a rapper. I don't pretend to
What do
be
you do?
one.
Yeah, I hope you don't rap. You don't scratch. You don't rhyme.
Do you wrap her gifts, or do you get them paid to wrap by someone else? Because my dad, every year you'd think, oh my goodness, this guy knows how to rap. Yeah, it's because there's a station at the mall that he goes and he takes his gifts and they wrap it for. And so my mom knows. It's no hidden secret.
Well,
but
I mean,
I've got a wrap for my mom's in her 80s, so I have to wrap all the presents for her that she gives to numerous relatives, and that's time consuming. So I haven't even started that yet. Let alone I haven't wrapped a single present I'm giving out.
When it comes to the wife's gifts, it's a little different. But those
You are
like
the gift.
Gift bags or
You are the gift, John.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's right.
Remember that, Bianca. Remember that.
Wait.
Golf clap.
No, which one is? There it is.
Yeah, there you go. There. That's what I was trying to do on the tabletop here. Oh boy, new can of worms is open.
I know, right? Well, and again,
John got a new toy.
But the cool thing
Christmas
about
came early.
The cool thing about kids and younger is they my wife would always be like, okay, every kid's got to have 15 gifts. Like boom, 15, right? So we had to make sure every kid had 15, and she'd always count it like the night before Christmas Eve. And if she had needed an extra one, she'd run out to the store real quick and buy an extra gift.
Just so the kids had the same number, yeah.
Yeah, but now my kids, like my son Nathan goes, Dad, I want a Vulcan TKL computer keyboard and a Logitech G Pro gamer mouse.
That's all you're getting.
Because they're
those two gifts are like $600.
Yeah, I mean, like that. I'm like, what is this? And then
you might get a bag of candy in your stocking.
My daughter Brianna, the oldest, she wants a bag of real coal. She wants a bag of real coal.
Is she getting into barbecuing? Like,
I don't know. I mean, she said no charcoal. She wants she wants like straight up real, whatever the hell that even means, coal.
Well, I'm gonna leave that subject untouched, and I think that's where we'll just leave it at that.
Well, we will. So coal for everyone here from the Turner family. So, well, we appreciate you tuning in here a little over here on this Monday evening, the 19th, our last episode before now in the new year. We will not see you the following week. We have things that we'll be doing behind the scenes. We start filming some show stuff tomorrow. The Journey, we just start filming that here on Wednesday. And we're going to be at the Combine on Thursday, doing some coverage at the Combine on Thursday. So a lot of things that we're doing here. Our week is not even close to being done yet, and either is our year. But we're excited to be here in the new year. A lot of new shows coming, a lot of new everything. So stay tuned for more from us. But I'm going to send it off here. But anyone else got any more final thoughts here before we say adios?
Just a Merry Christmas. Hoping everyone does have a great New Year. I mean, sure, I'm not the only one that's had a rough year in 2022. So anyone that has, I wish you nothing but the best.
Yep. Happy holidays
Next
and
year.
Happy New Year to everyone.
That's right. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy New Year. And we'll see you here. Well, you'll see some more of us before the end of the year. But you will see us in all of our new shows coming here in January. Once again, from all of us here at the Michigan Soccer Network, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We'll see you next time for more soccer.
I watch soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
لا تنسون تتابعونا على الميشيغان ساكر نتورك.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I like to watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
Me gusta mirar fútbol en Michigan Soccer Network.
I watch soccer on Michigan Soccer Network.
I love watching soccer on the Michigan Soccer Network.
Back to Vitriol. He'll take a shot and he'll bear it. And then he'll fire it from Billows and it'll go in. Now Worrell has a good cutback from him. He'll fire one and that's going to go in. Oh, and both goals so far. He'll fire one and that's a wonderful save, Trinity. That's missed. Oh, it's Stone. And he'll fire one now from distance and that is in. What a strike by Ben Maher.